Alexa, can I unwatch a movie? Thanks so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on that red subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. So, I'm a big fan of the Wachowskis. I think that 1999's The Matrix is a phenomenal action movie. I legitimately believe it's one of the top 5, 6, 7, 10 action movies ever made. It's phenomenal. It still holds up. The movie's great. It invented bullet time and slow mo, and it revolutionized the way we do slow motion and graphic and visual effects. The movie for the time it came out was flawless, and it's still flawless. The story, the acting, the action, the fight sequences, the casting, the script, everything about that movie is essentially perfect as far as action films go. And it was a revolutionary film. It came out of nowhere. I remember the website was just like, I think it was whatisthematrix.com. It was like a boring, basically like a black screen with like a green, DOS prompt on it. And basically that was essentially it until the trailer came out. And it was kind of like one of those early examples of viral marketing that worked really well in the film's favor, and kind of, it bled well into the movie, right? It kind of like played its part in terms of like the whole simulation thing, and all of that really worked well. And I liked Speed Racer. I think that movie, everyone kind of dumped on it for a while, and then it became something of a cult classic. I loved it when it came out. I still love it. I think probably those are their two best films. I would say The Matrix #1 and Speed Racer #2. The Matrix sequels wasn't as fond of. I think that Reloaded has some awesome moments. I think that the scene, the entire like motorcycle sequence with the Ducati and like he gets the key maker at the end, like all of that is incredible. It's the best part of that movie by far. The rest of it's super overblown, way too much script, too much going on. And then the third one I think is just a complete dumpster fire that I wouldn't waste my time watching if you paid me money. Okay, maybe if you paid me a little bit of money. So now, way too much later, we get a sequel. It's called The Matrix Resurrections. It is a direct sequel while also trying to kind of act as a reboot of the series. This is clearly meant to establish a new trilogy. I will get into some spoilers about this, but you shouldn't care because this movie sucks, in case you haven't gathered that yet. What I did like about this movie, there's really one thing. I think that the strength of the film is the sequences outside of the Matrix, which means in the real world. I think all of those sequences work as well as can be, and really do a lot to tamper whatever is good about the rest of the film, which is everything that takes place in the Matrix. All of that sucks. So I like the sequences involving this new city of Io, which is like essentially a replacement for Zion, which was destroyed in the last movie. I think it was destroyed in Revolutions. I haven't seen that movie in a while, so that's the one thing I liked. Everything else I kind of hated. This movie, as Warner Brothers seems to want to do, breaks the fourth wall for no freaking reason at all. Warner Brothers gets name dropped. Neo, instead of being like some office, computer programmer, he makes video games for a living. And it's very much like he's making a video game called The Matrix. And none of that works. As a gamer, I could not possibly care less about any of that. And it tries to like wink and nod at the audience and just completely falls flat. So not a big fan of any of that. The color palette, the scenes in The Matrix in the original had like this kind of like green, very subtle green tint to them. This movie looks like it was a made-for-TV film that they didn't decide to do anything special with in terms of the color palette. What set apart the original was that kind of green hue, and then everything in the real world was kind of more blue, definitely more gritty, and none of it works in this film. So it's actually kind of jarring because we know what these movies should look like, and this movie doesn't look anything like that. The fight sequences in this movie are awful. What should be a strength actually turns out to be a major weakness. There's a fight sequence at the end of the film. I'm sure you've seen some of it in the trailers. It's on like a rooftop and helicopters, and Neo is like stopping bullets with his hands, and all of it is completely ham-fisted and lame. And there's like a subway fight sequence that's not any good. None of the fight sequences even approach anything resembling decent. They're all crap. The fight choreography, whatever. They have like a replacement for the like dojo fight sequence from the original Matrix, but who cares? None of it works. The special effects. This movie cost $190 million to make, and I don't see any of that on the screen. I legitimately don't. There's effects and there's like bullet time and things slow down and things speed up, and that's there, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good enough to justify the budget that this movie has. So yeah, that's trash. There's also these weird flashback sequences between the original film and this one. So they'll show like Jonathan Groff is the replacement actor for he plays Agent Smith. And it's not very well explained. And he is they'll like show him and then like flash to like a shot of Smith. And I don't really get, I think I kind of get what they're trying to do. They're trying to like tickle that nostalgia button a little bit, and it doesn't work at all. And they do this throughout the film. They do it with Morpheus. They do it with Neo, even though Keanu Reeves is still playing the character. They do it with Carrie-Anne Moss's Trinity, and they do it throughout the entire film. And none of it lands. None of the punches land that they intend to. And really a big part of the problem too is the villains, right? Agent Smith was an iconic villain in the original Matrix, and the agents were this like fierce force that had to be reckoned with. And here I just don't care. It's all been done before, and it's all been done better. And then kind of conclude, who is this movie for? This movie is boring, and this movie is way too long. It's like 2.5 hours long. And what struck me about the film probably the most, my immediate takeaway watching it was all of the important stuff regarding the story happens in the last 30 minutes. I could, no joke, I'm not a screenwriter. I could sit down and write a condensed version of the script that gets all of the important parts out of the way in 30 minutes. I could get you that script in a week. If you gave me a week, I could give you that script, and it would condense everything down, and it would be a better movie. This movie could be a 30-minute short film and be significantly better. The beginning is way too long. It's all bloated. I don't care about any of the side characters in or out of the Matrix. They do a decent job with Jada Pinkett Smith is back. They do a decent job with her makeup, considering she's like way older, because this movie takes place like way after the Matrix, way after the original trilogy. And her makeup is actually pretty decent. Again, this is one of the things in the real world that they actually do get right. And I almost feel like that's where most of the budget was spent, on the real world, because like all the robots, the Sentinels, that stuff all looks really good. And it seems like maybe that's where they spent all the money. And the fact that all of this important story is so like just shoved into the back end, and like the reason this movie exists, all that explanation is done in like a 5-minute, piece of dialogue. And that could have been in the first 10 minutes of the movie. So it's overly long. The performances are fine, although you will never be able to replace Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith. It's just never going to happen. They should have gotten him back. They should have gotten Lawrence Fishburne back. And I like Yahya Abdul Mateen. I think he's actually a decent actor. He was one of the best parts of Aquaman from a couple years ago when he played Black Mantis. And just none of it here works. So super disappointed. I love the original Matrix. I will always love that film. I could go back and watch that movie any day and still adore it. It stands the test of time. It holds up extremely well. And this movie shouldn't exist. I don't know who was asking for it. I don't know who the hell wanted it. It got put out at a terrible time for theaters, like at the same time as Spider-Man. Really, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, that's a way better movie. And this is just going to get dominated and run over. And that's exactly what should happen, because that is exactly what Warner Brothers deserves. They get a lot of trash from me in this channel, because I think they're just probably the worst movie studio of all the major studios. Yeah, basically the only good thing they've done in the last couple of years, I think the Batman's going to be good. I liked Aquaman. And the only like really great thing they did, I think, was the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, and I mean, this year we had another stupid fourth wall breaking movie in Space Jam, and that was Warner Brothers too. So they don't seem to know what they're doing, and this movie is kind of a perfect reflection of that. They just completely fumble the ball. They don't know what to do with this franchise, other than some suit, in Southern California, putting a stamp on it and saying, "All right, I'm greenlighting this movie." They don't know what they're doing with it. So, yeah, don't see it. It's not worth it. Thanks so much for checking out the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, consider subscribing. If you think I'm completely wrong, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. It seems like this movie's actually I think it's got like a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I have no idea how that's even possible. Clearly those people haven't ever seen the original Matrix, because there's not even a comparison to be made there. So I'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.